Sorry, I missed that. What did you say now? And be careful, you're live.
Yeah, I was going to say we got one that's clear and one that's fuzzy.
Well,
We're
I'm
both
always
furry.
clear. I pay the big bucks for internet.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm paying the big bucks. Well, as much as the bucks as I can, but it's still not as good as the services you get in town. That's the worst of it.
When you live out in the country and you can uh,
Yep.
walk out the back door, fire up your snowmobile, and bugger off, there's a price to
Well,
be paid.
interesting. Interesting. We can't do that anymore.
Oh no! Oh,
I don't
somebody
have any
just
snowmobiles.
what? What
Yeah,
happened?
I sold them.
No.
I sold them on the weekend. Yes, I had somebody that wanted them more than I did, and they wanted to pay me an outrageous amount of money. And I thought, well, I can't be the guy to stand in your way, so I took their money.
I'm shocked.
So I might buy another one later, but I'm actually researching a new motorsports for me.
Oh, are you going to share with myself and the
I- I'm I'm
thousands and thousands
I'm
of
I'm thousands and thousands of others. Yes,
yes,
I'm looking to trade in my two skis for two wheels.
your skis for two wheels. Now, does the two wheels work on snow?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay, just wanted to be clear.
dry roads only. But I probably got about 9 months of dry roads versus 3 months of snowy trails.
Ah,
So we'll get more use, more fun. So
why does it say my audio is muted? I hope that's not the case. Let's
I
just
hear
see.
you. I
Okay,
hear
no,
you, and we're live.
yeah, I know, and that's what scared me there. I hope my audio is not muted, but welcome to another episode of what is it? The Secrets of Safety Dog. That's what it is.
Safety dog.
Where I bring this stuff to you, and holy smokes, we got a guest again. And Mr. John Farquhar, who forgot to feed the squirrels this week, is with us. And Johnny and I, we were discussing before we went live today what we were going to talk about. And out of my hat, I pulled National Safety Code. And John, I want to show you. Whoops, I probably didn't. I am prepared somewhat. Uh, there we go. Let me show you this and see what you two people share. Let's see what happens. Hey, whoops. Except for you don't want to see my email. Um, Wrong screen there. Let's go to the other screen. And then I can go there. Okay, so here. This is
There we go.
in, so if I click back one, this is that book that the MTO has published, and it's called the Commercial
Yep.
Vehicle Operators Safety Manual. And then
Great
module,
document for everybody to have.
yeah, like if you're going to have a CVOR or about to get a CVOR, I know it's 300,
Yep.
it's about 300 pages. It's less than that, but it is something that you should look at least
Yep.
once. My God. Anyways, module three.
Hmm.
So I thought we would talk about module three a little bit, which is all about the National Safety Code. And it also refers to some Ontario legislation, some federal legislation, international agreements like IFTA. Johnny, what's IFTA?
Ooh, I've heard that before. International Fuel Tax Agreement.
Yeah, and then there's PRP. What's
Ooh, prorate
PRP?
registration.
Yeah. So, anyways, it talks about stuff like that and copies of the legislation. So, what I quickly did, as you probably figure out, I don't spend a ton of time on these things when I'm trying to prepare. I try to keep it simple. Stupid is
Hmm.
we know that
Hmm.
I can keep it.
Kiss me.
I can keep it stupid. Don't know if I can keep it simple. Where did I go wrong? Oh, it is. There we go. Okay. So I quickly did a couple of slides here for National Safety Code. John, by any
Go.
chance, do you know how many modules are in the safety code or chapters or whatever they
Um,
call it?
I believe it's either 15 or 16. I'm trying to remember now.
See, and I ask you, and I forget whether it's 15 or 16, but we're going to find out.
Yeah.
And
Perfect.
I think we have, yeah, we got, holy God, we've got a viewer. It's not your mother again, is it?
Woo. It could be. I don't know.
So anyway, we are talking about the National Safety Code, and I just want to go through this real quick because in that book that I showed, you know that it says, hey, you're supposed to teach your drivers something about the National Safety Code. And in the orientation, you're supposed to go over this. And so what I did is I put a few things together here. And in the speaker's notes, you're going to find all of these HTA regulations that I'm referencing here, just so that you can look at them, because I was doing some digging again this morning. Before we get into this, John, how many times or do you often recommend to your clients that they pull a driver's abstract every 90 days? Do you ever say that to your clients?
Yes.
Why do
Yes.
you say that?
That is the norm, is kind of say on a quarterly basis, pull that driver's abstract.
But why? Did you just pull this
Well,
out of your?
One, my out of my head? No.
Yeah. I was thinking of something lower, but you know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one is good practice, so we can keep an eye on what the driver's activity are in case they fail to report any violations, fines, infractions that they received on the road or even in their personal vehicle. But there's an even greater reason to make sure that you pull that on a quarterly basis, and Chris is going to tell us
What
why
is
that's
that
important.
greater reason? Where did it go?
It's got something to do with the impounding of the vehicle.
It does. It does. Don't get your vehicles impounded.
Yep.
And sure, now I can't find it. And I was doing this for somebody else. I'm doing, you know, about the ASRA, the alternate safety risk assessment that MTO started to do, and I'm working for a carrier, and they pull the abstracts once a year, and I'm trying to convince them, of course, to pull it every 90 days. And so I just pulled this up, and I made reference in my response to them. No, you got to do it every 90 days because of Regulation 455/10. And right now, why isn't 455/10 coming up?
It's Monday. Still sleeping?
I don't know. Like, I'm going to put Ontario in here. 455/07. I'm sure it was 10. Come on. Well, I'm going to have to go into my history now and see. Oh my goodness.
We do know it's got to do with if you are caught roadside inspection and due to a number of violations or a driver suspension, the vehicle and the driver can be parked. Vehicle will be impounded. But if you can provide proof that you checked that driver's abstract in a certain amount of time, and during that window you found his license was not suspended, they will give you back your truck and trailer.
You see, and that's kind of what it says there under exemptions from 55-2,
Yes.
a commercial motor vehicle. So if you can prove that within the last 100 days your driver had their license. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting.
Yep. Exactly. And that's why we promote do it 90 days. Don't do
Right.
it exactly 100 days, because if it goes to 101, it's not going to work. But if you go 90 days, you're guaranteed every time you're less than that 100 days. So that's the best. And 90 days is an easy number to remember because it just happens 4 times a year.
Right. I mean, how could you possibly? Anyway, it is regulation 455/10/10. If you just Google it, you too can find this on the internet. And this is what I was doing because I found it for my client, but it also helps us with the very first thing here. Where did it go now? Keynote. I do my stuff in Keynote, and for you non-Mac users, Keynote is the equivalent of PowerPoint. So the single driver license concept is National Safety Code Standard 1. And if you want to look it up, HTA regulation, you can actually read the regulation. So I'm just going to go through some of these real quick, but there's the actual regulation. Maybe I should make this a little bit bigger. I could actually go into present mode if I really wanted to get fancy. And there, that makes it kind of bigger now. Well, I mean, just really quick. So National Safety Code knowledge and performance tests. And when I was doing this, believe it or not, it is talking about the driver's license examinations. That's the tests that they're talking about. So what we do at the Drive Test Center. It didn't have anything to do really with the written tests that a carrier should be, in my opinion. What's your opinion, Johnny? Should a carrier be given a written
big time.
road test? Yeah, I mean.
Yep. Should always be a written knowledge verification, competency quiz, so that they understand the rules of the road, and to tie it in with your road evaluation of the driver.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense. National Safety Code number 3, driver examiner training program. So again, that has to do a lot with the driver examiner. So we're not going to talk too much about it, but this is what it is. The classified driver's licensing system. How many other provinces, John? Skill test question, which I don't know the answer to. But how many other provinces or territories, as we call them here in Canada, have Class A licenses? Call it a Class A license. None. That's what I believe too.
Yeah, none. Ontario is the only one. Everybody else is a numerical system.
Which, like a Class what would be a tractor trailer license in Alberta?
Class 1.
Class 1. That's what it's called throughout most of Canada. And a Class A here in Ontario. Why did Ontario pick Class A? Because
they like to be different.
Well, no, several of the states call it a Class A.
Yes, right? That's true. Yes.
In the States, it's either a Class 1 or a Class A, but many states call it a Class A. So that's where Ontario came up with it. It's not uniform in the States either, which I find kind of funny.
I thought maybe it was something to do with what you knew more of, the alphabet or the numerical system.
There you go. Okay. Number 5 is the self-certification standards and procedures. This has everything to do with the driver training schools, and the regulation is right there. Number 6, medical standards. See? And if I lean back, a policy. So there's a regulation, but what I want you to know, and this isn't in the regulation as far as I read it, but you need to have a policy that your driver tells you if they are no longer qualified. For example, is it a W that goes on the abstract when you're no longer?
Yes. A W will say you have a waiver. Yep. So for an example, and I'll use a perfect example. My father had epilepsy. So he was allowed to drive, but he had to get a waiver to operate a commercial motor vehicle in Canada. So he had to go through some particular testing and medical examinations and whatnot to validate that he had that. And so with the W supposed to be on your driver's license, which says you have a waiver, that now allows you to drive across Canada, even though you have epilepsy.
Right. And however, you are not U.S. qualified.
Right. U.S. becomes a totally different story. If you have a W on your license, you cannot go into the U.S.
Right. See, I've always thought
they don't
of it,
recognize that on the license.
Yeah. Well, I've always thought of it as the diabetes. If you are
Yes. Yes.
a
Same thing.
diabetic and you're needle dependent, you're not able to go into the States. However, you can have a class
Well,
one
you weren't.
or a
Yeah.
class A in Canada,
Yep.
right? So
Right.
it has a lot to
Exactly.
do with the medical, but every company needs a policy to have the drivers tell
Yep.
the management if something changes. And then, of course, you should be
Correct.
pulling the abstracts, as John and I just discussed, every 90 days, and you should be looking for a W. Because if a W shows up, that driver is
Yep.
no longer qualified to cross border. So, and of course,
Well,
we have
and
this
making
whole,
sure that they've completed their medical. Yeah, making sure they've completed their medical as per the expiry date that's on the abstract.
yes, and we won't talk about cross border trucking at the moment with what's going on in the news. Will we, John?
No, 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 no. We're just talking about Canadian. This is the National Safety Code standards. These are Canadian.
Man, I follow the news with great interest with what's happening this past weekend, what's currently still happening, and yeah, I'm very interested in it.
Yeah.
So number 7,
Yep. Wife and I have been doing. Wife and I have been looking at it and looking at each other this whole weekend, and we do this to each other.
yeah, anyway, I'll make some comments off air. Standard number 7 is the carrier and driver profile. So this is all to do with abstracts.
Yes.
So, and the rating system. Would you believe the rating system? Excellent. Oh, so no, excellent's not there. I don't believe. I think Ontario isn't Ontario the only one with an excellent rating.
I believe Ontario is the only one that has an excellent rating. Yes.
But everybody else, for your national safety code number, as all the other provinces call it, or here in Ontario, your CVR number, you have a rating of satisfactory, satisfactory unaudited, conditional, and oops. No, it's not called oops, but it is called oops. And now I'm having a brain for unsatisfactory.
Unsatisfactory.
Yeah, so it's not called oops, it's called unsatisfactory. And can you imagine an insurer?
It sounds the same though.
Yeah, may as well be the same because we all know the hard time people with conditionals are getting. Can you imagine if you had an
Yes,
unsatisfactory rating? Oh,
Oh gosh, yes. I don't think you'd be turning any wheels.
yeah, I don't think the insurance industry is going to jump all over you for that one. Anyways, here's again just a little screenshot of that Ontario regulation for commercial. Look at this, commercial motor vehicle operators information.
Information.
What's the acronym there? CMVOI. So, right? It has a lot in this regulation to do with CVR. Let me tell you.
Yes.
If you sit there and read that one, we're not going to do it. Short-term suspensions. This is number 8, and going back to what John and I opened with.
This has nothing to do with the spring rate in your truck.
Yes. So going back to what John and I opened with, you need to be pulling your abstracts every 90 days because standard 8 is there. But I actually cut and pasted this from the standard so that you could hear it. A standard that describes the criteria for placing a driver out of service on a short-term 24-hour basis when a peace officer has reasonably and probable grounds to believe your driver's ability is affected by alcohol, drugs, or fatigue. And I stress the word fatigue. Regulated in Ontario by the regional and provincial police. So there's no actual provincial regulation, but each police force enforces it on their own by the sounds of it. And this legislation provides for the suspension of a driver's license for up to 24 hours when the ability to operate a vehicle is impaired by alcohol, fatigue, or drugs. So fatigue could also include things.
With regards to fatigue, I'd like to add in there that fatigue can include a driver being ill, being sick, not feeling well. This is very important because if you've got a cold or the flu and you're thinking, I still need to go to work, well, here's something that can put you out of service very, very quickly.
Yes, if an officer deems that you are not capable of driving or operating your vehicle safely, standard number 8, and in this case, these police force regulations can put you out of service. So interesting enough, that was standard 8. Did I skip a standard? Because now I jumped to 9. There is a
Yeah,
standard
where'd
9?
9 go?
That's what I'm
there is.
saying. Where did 9 go? Oh, and John, 9 hardly ever gets a ticket written.
Oh, it's unheard of.
Yeah, it's unheard of because a driver never drives after 14, never drives after driving 13 hours, never forgets to take his 10 hours. What am I talking about, John? What's number 9?
Hours of service.
Hey, I skipped it by mistake, but it is hours of service, and that is Regulation 555/06. So if you wanted to read what Ontario says about it, it is that. But of course, we all have 13 hours of drive time in a 14-hour work day that takes place all in a 16-hour working window. And it's complex, and we won't get into it, but I just want you to know. And so why are we talking about this? I just want you to realize that you are supposed to be teaching your drivers all of these standards, whether you're going to use the Highway Traffic Act regulations or the National Safety Code Act. Doesn't matter. You're supposed to be, when you bring the driver on board, you're supposed to be refreshing their memory on all of these regulations. And of course, John, what do the lawyers like to see once you've done that?
Documentation, a verified quiz.
I knew you would say that. So, sorry, I didn't know you were saying that, but I was sure hoping that's where you were going to go. All right. So
Yeah, we think along the same line, so we're like brothers from another mother.
Yeah. So that was number 9, which somehow it got omitted from the slideshow. Number 10 is cargo securement. And again, that's pretty important. And this time of the year, we got flying
and
stuff.
this applies to all cargo. Yeah, and this applies to all cargo, not just open deck or flatbed. There's regulations in here even for dry van and refrigerated cargo.
Well, and it also covers cargo in the you may not think of it as cargo, but anything that's flying off of your vehicle, such as ice and snow,
Yep.
can be deemed insecure cargo. So just be careful there. Make sure you're teaching your drivers. I don't know what happened to Standard 11, but we have Standard 11B, if that's good for everybody. Commercial vehicle maintenance and inspection standards.
Yep.
So again, hey, we've got to
Very
maintain
important.
our trucks. We got to train the drivers on how to do a vehicle inspection, that type of thing. Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance, CVSA. And I did, let me just flip over here.
Good organization.
It's a great organization. And where did it go now? There. Whoops. Look at that, Johnny. I went and screwed that up, didn't I?
Love the color.
Yeah, the colors are
looks
beautiful.
good.
But if you've never been to CVSA, I just thought I'd throw this up here. Go there. And by the way, CVSA now has, you said taken over, but certainly supports the fatigue management program. North American Fatigue.
Excellent program.
Yeah. So is it here? I forget now.
There you go. There's the word. They have adopted. They have adopted the North American Fatigue program.
Where do you see that word?
So it was in the scroller up here in the top here.
There you go.
The next,
there we go.
banner that goes by right there. CVSA adopts. Yep.
Okay, so I just wanted to, if you need a training program for your drivers during the new hire orientation, you might look at that because, John.
And you know what's really cool about it? It's free.
I was going to ask you, how much does that cost?
There's no cost. Yeah, it's free. It's free, and it's a really well-designed program. There was a lot of Canadian input from different provinces as well as the U.S. A joint effort North American-wide.
Yeah, so I would encourage you to look at that. And then Standard 13 is trip inspection. Oh, my God.
Oh, Oh, this is a killer. Oh, there's too many guys that don't pay attention to this. This is so easy. Do your trip inspection. Document your trip inspection. Document your defects. Come on, guys.
And communicate
And
those
girls.
defects to your employer
Yep.
or to your operator, however you want
Yep.
to say the word.
Exactly.
Number
Yep.
14 is
Yep.
safety rating.
Well,
So-
and you know what? It's funny because a lot of guys, a lot of drivers don't know that because they're unfortunately they might mark it down, but they're failing to report that defect, whether it's minor or major, to their operations team to say, "Hey, I need to let you know this." You know, that's in that trip inspection requirement. You need to report it and record it.
Well, during a facility audit, which is coming right up, during a facility audit, you need to be able to show the officer how it gets reported and track the repairs, which brings us to one of those things where
Yep.
when an auditor is auditing you and they keep going through trip inspection after trip inspection, that's perfect. Because I know this is what happens in a lot of cases. A driver does do a trip inspection, finds a clearance light out, because your shop is on the same premise as as where the drivers park. He runs over to the shop and says, "Hey, mechanic, can you fix my light?" And the mechanic does fix the light, and then the driver marks it as a clean inspection. Well, that's a ticket. That is
Yep,
a ticket.
exactly.
Because the auditor is going to say, well, how did the mechanic know to change this light bulb? And if it only happened once, you could get away with it. But when it happens time and time
Right.
and time again, it's telling
Time
the
again.
officer, you
Yep.
don't follow the regulation. So just saying there.
Right.
We have, well, I don't know.
Somebody.
I'm afraid I would, whoops, come on now. There we go. I'm afraid I'll butcher your name, but so I don't want to say it. Whoops.
Yep.
Because I really don't want to butcher your name, but thank you and welcome. So that's number 13 is the trip inspection. And then number 14, the safety rating. So we talked about that already because I screwed that one up. Number 15,
Yep.
facility audits.
Facility audits. Yes.
Certainly of interest to the carriers involved. And number 16, by the way, number 16, this is interesting, I think. Because number 16 is first aid training, but a voluntary standard outlining the elements that should be included in a basic first aid course for commercial drivers. It is recommended that drivers of commercial vehicles complete an approved first aid training and/or an occupational health and safety program. There is currently no legislation requirement in the Highway Traffic Act to support this standard. I thought
good
that
practice.
was very interesting. That they have the standard, but here in Ontario at least, they don't enforce it.
Right.
So it is a great thing. So you were right, 15 or 16. There are 16 standards, even though I forgot 9 hours of service. There are still 16. All right. Anything
We know they're there.
we do. So that's the National Safety Code standards. Next week, John came up with a great topic, by the way. John came up with this Code of Federal Regulations. We're going to be talking about, the new entry-level training requirements before the February the 7th in the States.
Yep.
So I think that is going to be...
FMCSA regulations.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of cool, I think. So in the States, we're going to talk about that because I asked somebody a question, somebody that you and I both know, because they work closely with TTSAO. And I want to know, does the Ontario MELT program meet this requirement? And I hope to have an answer by that time. I don't
Good
know
deal.
that we
I'm
will.
looking forward to it.
Well, yeah, I mean, TTSAO is a great organization, and so I went to them and I asked the question, does it meet?
Yep.
Because I'm curious.
Yep.
And we're going to talk more about this regulation next week. Johnny's picked the topic.
Perfect. Looking forward to it.
All right. John, last words or what? Oh, I know what else I wanted to show. Let me just go back to sharing my screen for 1 minute here. Switch screens. You guys got to put up with me doing this from time to time. So I did want to show list of certified VLD devices.
Yes, the Monday update.
Okay, so we talked about this last week, maybe I forget now. Platform Science is now on here, and Pedigree's now
Oh,
on
another
here.
new one. Ah.
Yeah. So I just wanted, it's the list is getting longer. Although, as with you, I don't think I've really heard of Pedigree Technology. Somehow I've heard of them, but
Well,
platform.
they do have a version up top, a little higher.
Yep.
So I don't know if maybe this was updated and rechecked, or if this is just a second version of their tool, or another version, I should say.
Yeah, or another
So-
device.
Yeah.
So-
But Platform Science, I've never heard of those guys.
Yeah, and so interesting. So a shout out to Platform Science. Yay!
Yes. Yeah.
'Cause
Hey, we're on the
they-
list.
They got certified. Was there anyone else? We could talk about what's going on in truck news, but we've already been on here
Yeah.
for 30 minutes. What the heck?
There you go.
What else is happening? What are you doing this week, Johnny?
I've got to go out and see a customer tomorrow, as a matter of fact, and then I'm back home for the rest of the week. And I'm going to suggest everybody in southwestern Ontario get your shovels ready. The forecast is calling for a foot of snow between Wednesday and Thursday. So they were talking about lots of rain. Now it's gone to snow. So when you see snow, go slow.
And with that, John, we will say adieu, goodbye, au revoir,
Adieu.
adieu.